Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Tryg. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
In this episode, we try to alleviate any concerns people may have about being on one of the podcasts. Sometimes when we reach out to people requesting they appear on the Pine Island Experience podcast, there are questions and concerns about the process. We decided to do a short podcast to address those issues. After you listen to this podcast, our hope is that you will say yes immediately if you're contacted by us, or better yet, you will contact us and ask us to be on the podcast. And now, here are the Q&As. We do not have guests today. It's just the two of us. We thought we would share some questions people have about being on the podcast. Tryg, why don't you start off with a question?
Is there a video?
No, we did not video the interview. It's audio only. We don't care to be in a video either.
Is the podcast live?
Nope. The podcast is simply recorded and then edited later before being published.
What happens if I misspeak?
Since the podcast is edited, we remove any mistakes, long pauses, coughing, or other issues.
I don't like the sound of my voice.
Well, no one usually likes to hear their voice, but we do our best to make everyone sound great without changing their voice.
I think I might be too nervous.
There's really nothing to be nervous about since people already know the answers to the questions. Our questions are simple, open-ended questions about the person or their business. We offer you water or coffee while you're on the podcast. Our goal is to allow the person to talk about and elaborate on whether topics they deem most important for the business. At the end, almost every guest says it was a fun experience.
What are some of the benefits of being on a podcast?
For business owners, please consider it free advertising. It's a nice way for the community to get to know the people of Pine Island and to learn what they do and learn about their business if they're business owners. We feel that we have a nicer experience when we know the owner.
Does it cost me anything?
No, the podcast is free to our guests. We do all the work and cover the costs as our way of contributing to Pine Island.
What's it like to be a guest on the podcast?
We just have a casual conversation with you, which is no different than if we were all sitting on a porch and talking. The only real difference is there are microphones being used.
How's the podcast recording scheduled?
We work around their schedule. We are very flexible and will accommodate each guest's schedule.
And where's the podcast interview held?
We interview our guests in our home. We turn our living room into a temporary sound studio, which helps reduce echo and noise to help the podcast sound as good as possible.
How long does the interview take?
The whole process takes just about an hour.
How does each episode get promoted?
We arrange a date and time after the interview to create a 90-second video at your location. The video process only takes approximately 20 minutes. We also take a few pictures of the business. The pictures and videos are then used in our social media.
When does the podcast get published?
We publish the podcast episode early on Friday mornings after we've edited it. The podcast can be heard on all major podcast listening apps like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and even YouTube. It is also possible to listen by visiting our website if there's no access to an app. The podcast is promoted on our Pine Island Experience socials, Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube. On Sunday after the release, the video is posted on our socials promoting the podcast. On Monday after the release, a post goes into many Pine Island Facebook pages.
May I link to a repost on my business social media?
Yes, we hope you do this in order to get the podcast to reach more people and help promote your business.
Hopefully these have been helpful to everybody. If you are interested in being on the podcast, or if you think of someone we think you should interview, please contact us. You can call us at 813-469-0784, or feel free to email us at pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. You may also choose to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter. with the tag @PineIslandEXP. Thanks for listening.
Good job, Tryg.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.